I refused to support my son's foolish business idea. Today, he's worth million. I, 56M, need to get this off my chest. 6 years ago, I made what I thought was the right decision as a father, but now I'm drowning in regret. This is a long story, but I need to share it, maybe to help other parents avoid my mistakes, or maybe just to process my own guilt. My son came to me fresh out of college with what I considered the most ridiculous business idea I'd ever heard. He wanted to create an app that would let people rent their driveways to strangers for parking. He needed $50,000 in startup capital, and as someone who'd spent 30 years in real estate, I shut him down hard. Looking back, I realized my reaction wasn't just about the idea itself. It was about my own fears and preconceptions. Let me give you some background. I grew up in a working-class family. My father worked 2 jobs to put food on the table, and I started working at 16. Everything I have, I earned through decades of careful investment in real estate. I put myself through college working nights at a warehouse. When I started in real estate, I lived on commission checks that sometimes didn't come for months. I learned the hard way that slow and steady wins the race. So when my son, who'd never known that kind of struggle, came to me with this revolutionary app idea, I saw red flags everywhere. He'd graduated with a computer science degree from a good university, a degree I'd paid for. I'd expected him to follow a traditional career path, get a stable job at a tech company, build experience, maybe start his own business in 10 years when he understood how the world worked. This is nonsense, I told him that day in our living room. Nobody's going to let random people park in their driveway. What about liability? Security? Insurance? You're just chasing some pipe dream instead of getting a real job. I can still see his face fall as I spoke, but at the time, I thought I was being the responsible parent. He tried to show me his business plan. He had a whole presentation prepared on his laptop, market research, competitor analysis, prototype screenshots, everything. I wouldn't even look at them. I was convinced I was protecting him from failure. My wife sat there getting increasingly frustrated, trying to get me to at least hear him out, but I was stubborn. I'd seen too many young people lose everything chasing startup fantasies. What makes this worse is that he wasn't asking for a handout. He had $30,000 saved from his part-time jobs through college and internships. He'd worked every summer, saved his money, lived frugally. He just needed help with the rest. But I refused. I told him to apply for entry-level positions at established companies instead. Get some real experience, I said. Learn how businesses actually work before trying to start your own. He walked out of our house that day, and something fundamentally changed between us. My wife didn't speak to me for a week. She kept saying, "You didn't even look at his presentation. You didn't give him a chance." But I was convinced I knew better. The next few months were tense. He moved in with his college roommate, took a job at a tech company, and worked on his app nights and weekends. He stopped coming to family dinners. When he did visit, usually for his mom's sake, conversations were strained. We talked about weather and sports, avoiding any mention of his work or future plans. His girlfriend from college stuck by him through all of this. I remember overhearing her in our kitchen once, talking to my wife. She was saying how he was working until 2 a.m. every night, learning new programming languages, dealing with bugs, trying to figure out payment systems. Part of me was impressed by his dedication, but I still thought he was wasting his time. The holidays that year were particularly rough. He came for Christmas dinner but left early, saying he had work to do. My wife later told me he was meeting with potential investors. I scoffed at this. Who would invest in such a risky venture? But he proved me wrong, spectacularly wrong. He found an angel investor who saw what I couldn't. Someone who actually took the time to look at his presentation, understand his vision, and recognize the potential. They gave him the $50,000 for 8% of the company, the same amount I'd refused to invest. That investor believed in my son more than his own father did. For the next 2 years, we barely saw him. He missed family gatherings, holidays, even his sister's college graduation. My wife kept in touch with him and his girlfriend, but I was largely in the dark about his life. I told myself he was just being stubborn, that he'd eventually realize I'd been right all along. Then last week, I was reading the business section of our local paper. There was his face, in a feature article about successful startups in our city. His parking app now operates in 50 major cities. They just completed a funding round valuing the company at $240 million. He owns 42% of it. The article detailed his journey, how he bootstrapped the company working 80-hour weeks, living on ramen and coffee, debugging code at midnight, cold calling potential clients during his lunch breaks at his day job, how he and his girlfriend lived in a tiny studio apartment to save money, how he dealt with endless rejections from investors before finding the one who believed in him. That 8% he gave away for the $50,000 I refused to provide? It's now worth $19.2 million. I did the math on what my potential investment would be worth today. I had to sit down. But you know what? It's not about the money. Reading that article, seeing everything he went through, I realized how completely I'd failed him as a father. He needed me to believe in him, to at least consider his idea with an open mind. Instead, I dismissed him outright because I thought I knew better. I let my own experiences, my own fears, cloud my judgment. I was so focused on protecting him from failure that I nearly prevented his success. The article mentioned how his app solved all the problems I'd raised that day in our living room. They have comprehensive insurance coverage for both driveway owners and parkers. They have a rating system and verification process. They've partnered with major events and venues to provide overflow parking solutions. Everything I said couldn't be done, he figured out how to do it. My wife saw him for coffee yesterday. He's getting married next spring to his girlfriend who stuck by him through the lean years. She's now their head of marketing. Turns out she had a business degree and experience in digital marketing that helped them grow. They're planning a small ceremony, but he hasn't sent us an invitation yet. My wife says he's not sure he wants me there. I've tried calling him, but he's not picking up. I sent a long email apologizing, acknowledging how wrong I was, but no response yet. My wife says I need to give him time. That 6 years of hurt doesn't go away with one apology. She says I didn't just reject his business idea that day. I rejected his dream, his capabilities, his judgment. The worst part? His app is brilliant. I've used it several times now. Last week, I had a meeting downtown where parking is a nightmare. I opened his app, found a driveway 2 blocks from my destination, and booked it in seconds. It's exactly what he said it would be: simple, efficient, solving a real problem. The kind of idea that seems obvious only after someone else makes it work. I see his success being talked about everywhere now. Friends in the real estate business use his app to monetize empty driveways in their properties. My golf buddies talk about this brilliant new parking solution, not knowing it's my son's creation. Every time someone mentions it, I feel a mix of pride and shame that's hard to describe. Yesterday, I drove past his old high school. I remembered picking him up there after programming club meetings, him talking excitedly about apps and websites he wanted to build. I always half-listened, telling him to focus on his grades instead. How many other dreams did I dismiss over the years? How many times did I let my own limitations become his? I'm not looking for sympathy. I know I messed up, and I know these are just the consequences of my own actions. I'm sharing this because maybe another parent will read this and learn from my mistake. Your kids might see possibilities you can't. The world they're growing up in is different from ours. Sometimes the best thing you can do is shut up, listen, and be willing to admit you might be wrong. Edit. Thank you all for the responses. To clarify some common questions. 1. Yes, I could have afforded the $50,000 investment. I had the money in savings. 2. No, my son never asked me for money again after that day. 3. For those asking about his mom, she supported his idea but couldn't go against my decision as I managed our finances. 4. He did try to explain the liability/insurance aspects, but I wouldn't listen. 5. To those saying I'm just regretting missing out on millions, you're wrong. I would feel just as bad if his company was only moderately successful. It's about not believing in him when he needed me. 6. Yes, I've tried to reach out multiple times over the years, but I always led with justifying my decision rather than admitting I was wrong. Update: 24 hours later, my son finally responded to my email. He's willing to meet for coffee next week. His message was brief but civil. He said he appreciates my apology but needs me to understand that rebuilding trust will take time. I told him I understand, and I'm willing to take whatever time he needs. I don't expect to fix everything in one conversation, but it's a start. I'll take whatever chance he's willing to give me. Final update. For those asking for an update after our coffee meeting, it was awkward but productive. We talked for 2 hours. He shared stories about the early days of his company that made my heart ache. Sleeping on office floors, eating dollar store food, coding through the night. But he also said those struggles made him stronger. He's willing to try rebuilding our relationship, but he was clear that it needs to be separate from his business success. He doesn't want or need my investment now. He just wants his dad back. We're having dinner next month with his fiancée and my wife. Small steps, but hopeful ones. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this story, please hit that subscribe button. Don't forget to give it a thumbs up and share it with friends or family who might enjoy it too. Your support means a lot. And if you have any thoughts, questions, or story ideas, drop them in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you. See you in the next story.